Members here in person. Do I have a motion to establish the agenda?
So
Seconded. All in favor of establishing the agenda as posted, please say aye. Students? Aye. Board members? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? That is 2050. Our first item on here is partial governance process monitoring. It is an update on the Mary Wheat Pool project, progressive design build contract.
And so I'm going to bring up Brandy to talk about where we are in the process with Mary Wake Pool. The recommended action after this is that we're approving this phase of the contract. I'm going to turn it over to Brandy.
Thank you. Just a little bit of history on this. If you remember, the CapTech levy that was passed included $2 million for Mary Wake Pool, assuming we were able to secure grant funding from King County, which we were successful at. So this is $2 million in funding from King County and $2 million from the CapTech levy. Great partnership with them on this project, and we continue to find every grant dollar available to put into the pool. This project is a little bit different for the district. We submitted to the state of Washington to obtain approval to use the progressive design build approach for the contractor rather than the low bid approach that we have used on previous projects. Went through a lengthy process, which is detailed in the agenda item, but GLY Construction from Bellevue, a very well-known contractor in Seattle, was our successful company. We have spent the last month working through with them the terms of the contract with Zach Tomlinson from Pacifica Law Group, and have a contract for you approved tonight. I think that combined with all of its exhibits is about 400 pages. There's a lot to it. I think what's most important to note about the progressive design build contract is it is one where we engage a contractor engages the architect. We agree on an amount for the contract, and then we agree that the scope will flex as necessary in order to meet that budget. So the maximum that this will be is the $3 million. The piece that you see in here now is called the validation phase. So this is when we work with the contractor and the architect to really develop what that scope of work is going to be and price it so that we can all agree on what that will be going forward. Any questions?
You already noted how long the contract is. I was just curious as to whether that's because it's a design, this progressive design build structure, because I don't feel like I haven't seen a contract this long.
It's just structured a little bit differently. If we took the Northwood contract and included with that the general conditions and all of the exhibits to the contract, it would probably be 1,500 pages because it references specifications and it references, but in this case, we went ahead and combined them all so that you could see all those parts and pieces to it.
How much are we anticipating that the validation phase will cost?
$145,000. But again, unlike a low bid contract, that is billed as incurred with a maximum. So if it costs us $100,000 to do validation, there's $45,000 more to go to the work.
And then from there, it's then the maximum guaranteed
maximum price.
Got it.
Other questions?
You want to talk just a little bit about where it fits within the CapTech overall process and, you know, it's part of our bigger CapTech plan and whatnot, just in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, at this point we have, you know, a budget that we're working with for the CapTech project. So, you know, this project along with the elementary school painting projects that are planned for this summer, some design work on a fuel tank solution in the bus lot will occur. But this is really a big chunk of that CapTech money. And we've known if we were successful in securing the grant that it would be coming. But same funds that we use for boiler replacements and carpeting and the work that we did last year.
For those who haven't been kind of following the whole process along, is this basically about improving the locker rooms, or are there other components.
Well, that's what's so interesting about this progressive design build approach, because there are two scopes of work that we have to define in order to be able to know what else we can do. One of them is the extent of the life safety improvements that will be required in the building, fire alarm and fire sprinkler. And the other is, what is the condition of the pool bowl? Are we able to go in and do select repairs to that pool bowl like we've done for the last 13, 14 years since the district took over responsibility for the pool? Or do we have to go in and do something more significant? It's part of why we wanted a contracted partner to help us figure that out. We are draining the pool on the 18th of February during winter break, so that we can bring Advanced Pool Coatings in, who was the company who did the big repair the last time, as well as a pool expert who will sound the whole pool and determine the extent of those repairs. Once we've been able to identify those two scopes, the other priorities are ADA accessibility to the mezzanine, and locker room renovations are right there at the top of the list. We also need to do some door replacement. There are 50-year-old doors in that pool that have warped and are challenging, so there'll be door and hardware replacements as well. But the idea of that design build contract is it really will let us stretch those dollars as far as we possibly can.
Up there on the screen is a one-pager that Brandy and Ian and others have been working on, and it details the Mary Wade Pool so community members can see. Also then outlines CapTech projects that we've accomplished recently or will be accomplishing, just to help our community with that as well.
There are any more questions? Do you want an addition to the list?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All in favor of approving the I'm gonna read it, so the Mary Wade Pool Project Progressive Design to Build contract. Please say aye. Students? Aye. Board members? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? That is 2-0. Thank you. And next we have our financial administration 2024 to 2025 financial dashboard, and also our November and December 2024 budget status reports.
Perfect. Provided to you is obviously the budget status reports, November and December. Also, financial dashboard through December, and then also the notes to those financials provided. Sorry. Some highlights. We're through December, about 33.3% of the fiscal/school year. Expenditures about 33.4%, so right on target for that measure. Revenues about 31.7%. This is of course lower because we see those local taxes that bump that up in October and April. Some points to note as we looked at our expenditures and revenues, differences month over month. Special education in particular, there's a decrease due to reduction completion of out-of-state contracts for 2 students in November, December. We're now currently down to 1 student that's in out-of-state placement. Revenues, in regard to, there was a decrease due to the receipt of local taxes coming in October, as mentioned prior. And then some taxes do trickle in the month after, in this case, November, and then we obviously drop off in December, bump up once again in April. State apportionment, there was a slight increase because of apportionment received from the state, bumps up a little bit by 0.5 percentage point in December. And then federal grants, I wanted to point out there's a decrease. There's some of our federal grants, there's usually a lag, a month or 2 at times, and some were not received in December. I'm sure we obviously have all read the news lately, but we still are receiving our federal grants as far as we know at this point, but there's a lot of static in the system for that. And then lastly, in regard to the monthly fund balance, we call it cash on hand, we saw an increase year over year, which is nice, about 574,000. This is obviously good news for the fund balance. The difference is due to increased enrollment, obviously. We have close monitoring of spending, and then tighter annual budgeting also. So everything as a whole is looking fairly good so far through the month of December.
So in December, we we were informed that there might be a shortfall for next year of 2.5 to 3.2 million unless revenue increases more than anticipated. How do you see that playing out in the next few months when we look at perhaps reductions in staff?
So as mentioned, we saw that we will have cuts up to about 3 to 3.5 million, 2.5 to 3 million or so. We hope as the legislative process moves through that we'll see more concrete in regard to revenue coming from Olympia as we move forward. And if so, whether that be levy cap, whether that be support for transportation, maintenance supplies and operating costs, or special education, we can then reduce that number as we move forward.
But based on just anticipated IPD increases, we're 2.5 to 3 million a shortfall.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And a piece of that too, as we said in the budget webinar, and we have a chance today to be at Lake Ridge and give a staff budget webinar. We'll be going to some of the schools, giving the same presentation we did to the community, that, you know, there's revenue in terms of what we might expect currently from the legislature just because of IPD and commitments. Anything new that may or may not come through, the reductions that we'll have to continue to make as a school district, and then also fees, and where are we moving with fees. I think things we know to be true in our community that other districts are choosing to eliminate, things like the 7-period day in some districts, we know is something that our district does not want to look at and prides ourselves on continuing. We haven't gone down the same road that other districts have of closing schools. And so those areas that we've chosen not to, we have to look at other areas, and that could be fees or cuts, obviously, and then the legislative session.
A lot of credit card fees for $3 million.
Anything else? Any questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Matt. Actually,
I want to
Yeah.
ask a question.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr.
I
Chen.
know. When we're looking at the enrollment and the budgeted enrollment, and then we came in so much higher, what was which is always the good way to be, what was the unexpected increase? Is there an explanation for the increase over what the anticipated number was?
Yeah, I think open enrollment did what it needed to do, which is to help smooth things over. But kindergarten came in much larger than we thought that it was going to. Quick off the back of my head there, we had about 190 kindergartners last school year. When we rolled them forward, we got our usual jump of about 30 students who come back from private in Montessori or private kindergarten. And so we wound up around 220 first graders this year. I think we're a couple students beyond that in our kindergarten class already. So we were not anticipating a kindergarten class as large as it is, which gives us hope, because if we also see that normal bump that we get between kindergarten and first grade, that next year first grade is even going to be larger. So those were some places. We also saw, again, more students coming into the school district who live here than leaving the school district. And so students choosing to come back from private school, students who moved here and then chose Mercer Island School District, that continues to outpace the number of students who are leaving for either private school or just moving out of the community.
And then our graduating seniors last year was substantially bigger than this year's senior class. Is that
I
right?
don't think it's substantial. It was like 360 something last year, and you are all,
330.
yeah.
And then how did like the next couple of years look?
If we can continue where we are now, I think we're going to hover right around 350. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Recognition.
Sure. Some recognitions this month coming up. We'll do a few to start with, and then we'll have some more at your February meeting. Before we close out our recognitions here, though, I do want to make sure that we put in a couple of announcements. Lunar New Year event down at the Mercer Island Community Center is 10 to 2 this Sunday. And so I know there's going to be a great celebration. It's been fun to be in schools, and the kids are coming around, and parents with some great ways to celebrate Lunar New Year in a variety of different ways. And so we have that. And then also right at your next board meeting that morning is the Mercer Island Youth and Family Services Giving from the Heart breakfast. So just a reminder, 7:30 at the community center for that one as well. Some other recognition, we're coming up on Black History Month for the month of February. And I was talking to our a couple leaders from the Black Student Union, as well as Kelly John Lewis the other day. And I know they're planning their annual dinner and some others activities at the high school that we can look forward to. Career and Technical Education Month is in the month of February, as well as National School Counseling Week. And, you know, I in some ways, I'm always trying to make sure people realize that our school-based counselors are a tremendous asset to our school district, to our academic counselors at the middle school and the high school. And we also have our school-based counselors from YFS.
I'll just give you a quick plug for the BSU dinner. At least last year, they had phenomenal food. So just keep that in mind. Like no guarantees for this year.
Yeah.
But last year was very good.
I think they've said they're going with a different, I think a different vendor this year because of something, but they said it's going to be just as good.
I think it was Kiko's last year. Barbecue.
Yes. So our counselors, I love the fact that we don't always separate them, and that people don't know that YFS aren't necessarily not school district employees, because it should be transparent to the community. But we all know, and you'll be meeting with the city next week, that the YFS counselors are city employees who we have a tremendous partnership with. But our counselors at the high school, the middle school, our elementary counselors, and then also our other counselors who support students needing support through their IEP or others. It's just a tremendous group. So lots to look forward to in the month of February with our recognitions. We will also, we're gearing up to start bringing you some more students, because new awards are rolling in. Our cheer team, you remember last year they qualified for state for the very first time in the program's history, and they finished third last weekend, which was tremendous. The high school is continuing with their new tradition of the Snail Blazers, and this might be part of your report coming up, but it's pretty exciting to see the second time around on some of those things. And then we also have our PTA reflections coming up in March, but all of the winners are being announced. And I think we have 84 students who placed either first, second, or third in the region, and 52 other students with honorable mentions. So I think that's March 8th. I'll get it on calendars, or March 5th. Great night always down at the middle school to celebrate them. So those are the recognitions.
That's great. We had told people that public input would be at 6 o'clock, and so it's kind of too early to do public input and be fair to those who have signed up. So I'm going to suggest that we keep going with the meeting, and then at 6 o'clock start a public input. It means those of you who have public input get a bonus 40 minutes of this leading school board meeting to enjoy. Thank you. Okay, so skipping over that, we get to 1800 OE6 budgeting and financial planning.
Great. This is full governance processing here. And so we have, as we do for the operational expectations, worked through this. I'll turn it over to Director Sullivan. If he wants to make any comments, I just want to call our attention that we do, again, have one area where we're not in compliance as we continue to work on fund balance.
Yeah, perfect. So OE6, budgeting, financial planning specifically. Financial planning for any fiscal year shall support board policy, protect the district from financial jeopardy, and be derived from a multi-year plan. In regard to in compliance, our assessment is items 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. But as Superintendent Rundle mentioned, not in compliance as per last year also is number 3. Item 3 is maintains adequate budget reserves to meet the financial requirements of bond rating agencies, consistent with board policy 1800 OE7. Once again, we find that's not in compliance.
No, go ahead, Deb.
I just want to make sure, I don't remember this from, I think you said it was announced in November and I just don't remember. The changes in the Moody's ratings and the fund balance requirements and that it's now needs to be at 15% for 2A.
Correct. So in 2022, we went from AAA to AA1, and many districts are facing this because Moody has re-looked at how they rate school districts in particular. And they were asking for a 20-25% fund balance. In 2024, once again, we went from AA1 to AA2, and now they're looking for a 15% fund balance or reserves, if you will.
Do you know if there's any districts in the state that have
There are a few, some smaller ones in my conversations with our friends at Piper Sandler.
okay, is that what Piper Sandler is recommending?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Is that what Piper Sandler is recommending for fund balance?
No, they don't have a recommendation per se.
What's our model of appropriate size or percentage of fund balance?
Well, per policy, it's a kind of a basement of 5% and then go upwards of 8 to 10%.
And my understanding that's based on like 2 months of operating budget, is that, or payroll?
Roughly, yes, at 8 to 10%.
8 to 10% is,
It can fluctuate month to month. It'll be a September that has large outgo in regard to insurance, initial insurance policy, et cetera. But yeah, so
is that what you believe is reasonable?
at least 2 months. 1 month is nice, 2 months would be excellent, but you're asking the finance person.
Right, no, I know what I'm asking. Is there a standard accounting practice guideline for that?
No,
Um,
just
Okay.
the recommendation from the auditors. They recommend up to 3 to 6 months.
the state auditor,
Correct.
3 to 6 months of
Fund
fund
balance.
balance.
Yeah, be able to take care of oneself as a district for 3 to 6 months. And the standard has been 3, 4, sometimes 6, depending on the audit team that is, well, auditing us.
And thought of in terms of months, where are we at right now?
Less than one.
Less than one. Less
Yeah.
than one. For those who haven't seen us do this yet, we're trying something new out where when a board member wants to recognize to speak, they turn their little name tag thing up, so.
So I believe with respect to bond rating, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that it actually doesn't matter so much in and of itself because Washington State backstops the guarantee when it comes to interest rates, although still a useful proxy for overall financial health.
Right.
So just to clarify for like the general audience that we shouldn't get too concerned, at least for the bond rating as it impacts an interest rate for a future bond. But then the second question is with respect to fund balance. I believe our budget projected that we would reach 8%. I believe is as soon as 2 years from now and 3. How are we on track for that as reflected in the budget that was approved in June? And then has there been any modifications?
Yeah, there's been no modifications to the estimate. I'm looking at where we were or what the estimate is at this point. But we still anticipate hitting around, I'm gonna say 4.5% by year end, if I'm correct.
And then so where does that put us for the 8% target?
We see that it's, it's apples to oranges and when the legislature is acting, I would say within 2 years.
So still, assuming that we, I believe Governor Ferguson said that the end of the era of assuming unrealistic growth in revenue is done. Then, okay.
I think sorry.
No, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be seen with a new administration taking hold in Olympia. Interesting to see what they do with projected shortfall and also some maybe they not quite promises, but at least, you know, I think Governor Ferguson was alluding to the fact of trying to get back towards the state investing more in public ed, and getting closer to that 50% where we were. What that means in a declining era is yet to be seen there, but we'll have to see. I think the other thing on the bond rate that Director Glowitz is mentioning there, I think different boards prior to you over time had different conversations. And I think the language that you see in OE6 is really reflective of a time where that was a priority. And so that's where you're kind of getting that. And we have not amended this necessarily for life.
I mean, if I may, I would agree with Director Glowitz. That's kind of a de minimis effect overall in regard to bonds, but for us, it's a sense of pride, to be frank.
Well, and 2 months operating buffer, I mean, there's 2 months operating buffer.
Right.
I'm just purely curious. I'm looking at last year's report of compliance, from January 2024, and I'm just curious, are those initials that it's been signed with, or are those supposed to be check marks? Like, what was going on there? It's
Can I look?
yeah.
Yes, initials of the following that board president, and then up there that is true. So at the end of the meeting, that's part of the red folder.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Somebody changed their mind. I didn't realize. Okay. Deborah.
That the reason I asked the questions I did is, and I think I was involved in changing some of that language to the bond ratings, and our world has changed. Now I'm just, you know, the idea of the monitoring is essentially, I mean, crucially important. And I'm just wondering if this is still really the standard that we want to be monitoring our superintendent at. I feel like it's setting us up to fail, that a sound financial model, you know, best practices with regards to payroll, and making sure we have those reserves is sound. And we can't control what if the bond companies won't even tell us why they're changing their criteria. Why are we, I want to make sure that we're monitoring based on what we believe is the objective purpose of the fund balance.
I think that could be, you know, especially if whether or not you want to have that conversation at the February 12th meeting during language review, or a subsequent study session, or maybe we surface questions like that and then come back to it. Would be, you know, happy to entertain that if that's where you want to go as a board. Ultimately, a language review.
I don't have an issue with the not in compliance because we've done that consistently since our fund balance has been below 5%. But that's rational. I mean, that makes sense to me that that obviously we want to be above 5%, that we acknowledge when we're not. This one doesn't make sense to me anymore. If the bond rating companies are going to change, like I said, change their criteria to, and 20% is just, I mean, we used to be 13 to 15%, and it wasn't functional for the district, at least at that time. I don't know if it would be today, but I just don't know that that's where we want to be.
I love the system. It allows me to absorb everything that is coming from the side. But I agree, and at the same time, I want to make sure that if we decide to go this path, that it is in a very in a way that is financially responsible for the district and also for our staff. That if we need those reserves to be used or whatever, we are there to support our school district. So, however we decide to go, it has to be in a way that reflects necessarily what we need to do and move forward. So, yeah.
Because the 8% tracks the 2 months salary, I'm not sure why we're having a discussion of changing that. Like, I mean, if that works, like we should not reduce it. I don't think it should be eliminated. I think it's good.
That's not what I suggested. The bond that the section number 3, where we're monitoring based on the bond rating.
But the bond rating, because it's backstopped by what? Yeah, we can clarify the language. And that's
no,
fine.
yeah,
that's
feel
I mean, it's
not
fine with
8
me.
to 10%. That's essential.
Okay, yeah, but it's fine with me because it's
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that we're pretty much thinking in the same lines. It's just that it's not the bonds who decide how much percentage. It's just being very clear on how much percentage we want to be in the language, to be clear for the community what it is.
Right.
And it's not mysterious bond measure. So that's the we're.
And maybe we might want to discuss anchoring it to something like 2 months
Yeah.
salary and operating expenses for district as opposed to, because right now it says like, who meet the financial requirements of bond rating agencies, but I agree, like, that's putting our policy on something completely external that we don't have control about, and that is not reasonable, given how many school districts there are in Washington state that are not meeting this requirement. I think we're all on the same page. Yeah. Okay,
Just one thing, I think this is an excellent illustration of how your OEs and expectation of superintendent really come together, because OE4 is where you talk about the OE4, correct, Matt, where we talk about the percent fund balance total, OE7, where we talk about that. We're talking tonight about OE6, but they're so interconnected. And your next OE is asset protection, which is also tied to this. So, it's hard to talk about these in isolation because of the way they work off of each other.
anybody else on this? Nope. Okay. This is an action item. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve, this item is posted on the agenda.
Second. All in favor of approving this item as posted? Please say aye, students.
Aye.
Board members.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
So technically just, we're finding the superintendent compliance with noted exception.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Moving on to asset protection. OE8.
I'll turn it right back over to Director.
Sure, this is OE8 asset protection. Specifically, the superintendent will take reasonable measures to protect, maintain, use, and safeguard assets. There is a part of it that's my role, but it also has to do with Director Ronzer, Executive Director Battersby, Director Kuhn throughout this 1 through 10 items. This is everything to do with maintaining insurance coverage on district property, to not allow personal access to material amounts of district and school funds, not necessarily exposing district or the board to legal liability, protect intellectual property information, files, and fixed assets from loss or significant damage, properly preserve and dispose of all records related to affairs or business of the district, not invest funds in securities that are insecure or not authorized by law, not acquire, lease, encumber, or dispose of real property, and not endanger the district's public image, credibility, or its ability to accomplish its mission. Throughout 1 through 10, we deem to be in compliance.
Any questions, comments, thoughts? Brett?
I would echo, I think Director Sullivan needs to give himself some credit in that list of tremendous people who work tirelessly to preserve our assets. Obviously, we're putting investments into our schools and into our hardware and others. And, we were just kind of walking through the history of different people. And one of the questions that Director Sullivan was asking Director Ronzer tonight is, who was before you? And Director Ronzer said, nobody. We didn't have a director before Andrews came along in 2011. And so, we've had to evolve, but this team does an amazing job.
I have a question. It's relevant and not relevant. Just asking, how are you finding any conversations regarding insuring properties now different than it was before? I heard that. I know that is something that's in mind now.
No, that's actually
what's happening.
a very topical question. No, aside from, I could probably turn to Director Ronzer a little bit with technology, but also most recently in regard to our underground fuel tanks over on our bus yard. They hit the 35-year mark and could not find private insurance, but thankfully we work for the state and they provide insurance and coverage for any leakages of those tanks. I mean, a real page turner, but yeah, it's topical. Yeah. And it was tough to find, but we did find it.
I think that this is a competition that is happening around the country as master disasters happen.
Yeah.
We're seeing, different ways how the people do this too.
We are very fortunate to be working with Washington Schools Risk Management Pool. They do a massive amount of work to find insurance, to find coverage.
One clarification. We did have a tech director. It became too unwieldy for former director, Jennifer Wright. She was trying to do tech director, plus trying to be an executive director, plus trying to do others. And finally we realized it is just too big, especially as we went to one-to-one. And so we split the job, but there wasn't a standalone. So I do want to give credit where credit's due to our dear friend, Jennifer.
I move we find that superintendent compliance with OEA asset protection.
All in favor of finding the superintendent in compliance, please say aye. Students? Aye. Board members?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstaining? That is 2050. Next item is board policy 1605, monitoring superintendent performance.
Yeah, so I asked for this to be pulled. It was on the consent agenda, and I guess what I just did sort of illustrates why I wanted to be pulled. We just discussed OE6, and I meant to vote against because I don't think that, as my comments made clear earlier, that the contract that we approved earlier in the year seems inconsistent with the position we find ourselves in now. Like when I approved the 3-year contract, I was not aware that we couldn't afford it at the time. There was no mention that it would require cuts, but in focusing on some of the other things later in the night, I approved it. And the reason that I pulled this one is one of the things that we have in the superintendent review policy is that the board may monitor any policy at any time by any method to, catch instances where maybe someone does vote for, as I just did, but then realizes actually in retrospect, some information was missing, whether it was because they were distracted as I was now, or just information comes to light later. And I don't think that in monitoring the superintendent, we should be focused too rigidly on a schedule and blind ourselves to additional data that might change from Monday to Wednesday. Something may happen on Tuesday, and then that changes the assessment.
Sorry, are you talking about OE6 in terms of, like, you actually meant to vote against OE6?
Yes, I did, and that's passed. But one of the things that we have for the superintendent review, in part to catch when something is not mentioned at the time, is on number 5 of it. We can monitor any policy at any time by any method. And that's sometimes because of oversights, as I just demonstrated, or it's because new data comes to light. So I do not think that the board, for an item that's going to be discussed later today, has taken into account all the data that has emerged over the course of the year. And so I will abstain from this policy. We're voting is in compliance with policy.
Other comments? That's different.
I'm a little bit confused. With approving a budget in August and new contracts, no mention we wouldn't have cuts. Our staff cuts are a result of making sure that, I know people hate this term, but right sizing our districts so that our staffing needs meet our enrollment numbers. I don't know how staff being able to earn a living wage has to do with our enrollment numbers. I don't see the connection. Obviously there's a connection because it's the primary source of our budget. But I don't know why we would. I think we always need to make sure that we have the appropriate number of staff for our number of students and the needs that they have. And that doesn't mean that other people, that the staff that we do have don't deserve to continue to make the salaries that frankly, that comparatively with other districts that they would expect to, that's required by the legislature with IPD. I don't see the connection at all. and would assume that if enrollment changes, that there would be staff cuts. Or if enrollment increases, that there would be staff cuts, and if enrollment increases, there would be staff increases. I don't see the connection that you're making. I also would, this is board policy 1605 has to do with policy governance, which is the governing model that was adopted in the early 2000s. And I think that if one did not agree with policy governance, it would be to see if there's consensus of the board to look at the governing model that we can't, well, I mean, I guess we could pick and choose which things to follow, but our superintendent's contract, his employment contract, is based on policy governance. So to vote against compliance when monitoring the past year of whether or not the board monitored the superintendent performance appropriately, I'm not seeing the connection. We're basically voting whether or not the board has monitored the superintendent's performance this year in accordance with our policy. And it sounds like you're proposing that we aren't monitoring it within policy. Or it sounds more like you just don't like the policy. So I'll let you, but I'm just saying what I heard.
Can I
And
just
clarify.
if Christina or Jody have anything they want to say first?
Yeah, so I guess a couple of points. I mean, one, I agree with the policy, but the policy provides that we can monitor any policy at any time as new facts come to light. That's all I'm saying. And I don't think we do that. I think we just follow the schedule, and no matter what happens on Wednesday, if we monitored it on Monday, or no matter what happens on Tuesday, if we monitored it on Monday, it doesn't change our response on Wednesday. So that's I agree. I agree with the policy. I just think that the policy provides that we should re-evaluate and reassess policy as new facts come to light. On the contract side, it's not dependent on enrollment. Like, our enrollment projections are exactly where we predicted it to be. It's because apparently we approved a contract that was premised on cuts, but weren't told about it.
I do not, please remind me, I don't recall a meeting where you made a motion that was a second that wanted to go and look at compliance again, that the board refused to.
I just also want to remind people that like we're getting kind of far off what the posted topic here.
Well, but that's kind of my point, is that we're monitoring, we have a very specific thing that we're monitoring right now, and having issues with policy or whether or not one made a mistake or not isn't, I mean, I don't understand.
So yes, I sent a memo dated January 14th that outlined a number of issues that I felt was problematic over the course of the last year that could have been considered as additional reporting data to be monitored at any time with respect to compliance with various policies.
Is there a motion to vote on this, or do we want to keep the discussion like this? In other words, sort of anyone.
I move that we find,
I will, I will say this is, this has been tough subject for us on the board, and just want to mention something that I think that are important for people to know. What you see here is not the only thing that we do. We have so many hours that we have work and talk about this. So it is, I agree that it is a policy that we had, the governance and what we're evaluating right now. I also, I want to say that I appreciate very much the relationship that I have with the district, that they allow me to go in deep with all the data. And every time that there's something that we have to monitor, I have gone and spent endless hours either with the superintendent or with the staff, and going, and Matt will probably remember all the times that I ask to go through every single number, because I am a detailed person with somebody that goes into detail. And I acknowledge where we are in history, how things are changing, and I'm very right now in what is happening in Lincoln and analyzing every single deal and every single budget to make connections. And I am somebody that is doing that. And I actually think that there's, I just want to say that I value very much how much it's being done right now with what we have and where we have been, because this is not an easy moment in history to be in education and to be able to achieve what we have. It is difficult, and I know that we are in budget constraints, otherwise we will not be here. And at the same time, I have go in depth in some of the points that you have mentioned to me and go into detail. And I think that it is according to the policy that we're monitoring right now. And just want to recognize that. And I also believe that the staff, by approving a 3-year contract, have recognized that, knowing that there's compromises there and there's an stability that needs in the district to move forward, and I think are really important. I think that is something that is really worth to acknowledge this morning.
I just wanted to say that I hear, Dan, that you are using this board self-monitoring, waypoint checkpoint in the schedule to as an opportunity to raise concerns that you have, which is a completely legitimate thing to do. I have done it myself. I did it 2 years ago with the board self-monitoring report. So it's like, that's totally fine. I'm not trying to shut down debate at all. It's just that, like, I want us to stick to the, what we have posted and inform the public that we're going to be talking about. So, and I don't think anybody's going to convince anybody of their point of view. So I think that I would like to move forward, but I'm waiting for somebody to make a motion. Well, I guess I could do this, but
President Tucker, if I may.
yes, sure.
So kind of, I'm in that awkward role of being both your secretary and your employee. The operational expectations, when we're in full governance like this, you're monitoring the full report based on a body of evidence from the previous year. Every single agenda item that we put into partial governance is always linked to an OE. And that is part of helping to signal to you that I, as your superintendent, along with our team, are monitoring and constantly working within your operational expectations. And along the way, if there's one or more that you feel like we would like to take or we need an update on or whatnot, you can motion certainly as a board or decide, can we take a look at OE4 subsection 7? We had some questions from community members, whatever you would like on those. The nuance that we have in policy governance, which is different than strict policy governance, is that we have this concept called a level 0, level 1, and level 2. And that was designed and created in the past mainly so that the board and the superintendent and staff can kind of work in unison. Because if a full report has to be done on every single subsection of every single OE, it'll go on and on and on. And so the boards in the past have decided that there are certain ones that are level 1 and certain ones that are level 2. You are always welcome, and you have the right, and you have a full decision-making ability to change those during your language monitoring to say, we'd rather do this or that. And I think you did that on a couple this year. And so we'll provide others. So those are ways that you as a board have some mechanisms too, if you would like to look at things along the way.
I think what my point was is that the purpose of this monitoring, the board policy 1605, is that we are recognizing and then measuring whether or not the board monitored the superintendent's job performance in the way that we laid out in board policy 1800 OE1. That's my point. And I don't think that having bringing in other issues, that I just want to make sure that that's what we're monitoring here. That's it. It doesn't. And I move that we find the the board in compliance of board policy 1605.
All in favor of finding the board in compliance, please say aye. Students? Aye. Board members?
Aye.
Abstentions? Opposed?
Nay.
That's 2-0 for 1. Okay. We have 10 more minutes until public input time, so we should just keep rolling along.
Yeah, you could either go to 7A if you think it's 10 minutes, or you could go to my superintendent report or announcements, ledge report. You could go to a lot of different, you could do consent.
You can
agenda.
consent agenda.
Well, let's do the consent agenda. That's gonna take 10 minutes. So. Do you have a motion?
I move that we, our new classes is consent agenda.
Yeah, for the consent, yeah.
Second.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Students? Aye. Board members?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? That is 2050. Yeah, ledge report would be perfect.
Okay, I'm just gonna start in by saying, and just for people who haven't been here before, I see a full house, this is exciting. I'm the senior lead rep and Christina Martinez is the other lead rep or co-lead rep, so she's actually taking charge. So I am going to report on other issues, and then Christina will report on the legislative situation, which is actually the bulk of our report. The only other thing is that Christina and I are leaving tomorrow to go to Washington, D.C. for the National School Boards Association Advocacy Conference, and then also a day of advocacy on the Hill, where we'll be meeting with staffers and our elected officials about and lobbying for education. So that is our big action as lead reps. And then Christina has been monitoring, doing a fantastic job monitoring and keeping on top of the legislation in Washington State that affects education, and bringing it to our attention and having us do a testifier at the same time.
And I will say that this has been a great opportunity for me to be inside Capitol Hill in the comfort of my house. So I created a kind of a spreadsheet for us to be able to work together and track all the bills. There's so many additional bills that are introduced to the legislature. And what for me has been an eye-opening is, for those who do not know, is any legislator, a senator or representative will introduce a bill, and it might pass committee, but it might go to several committees. So, for example, if the Senate votes to do the Education Committee, once they decide that that is a bill that they want to push forward to the floor of the Senate, it has to go then to the Ways and Means of the committee, and also the Rules Committee. So it has to go through several committees. And that also means that the support of the community of a certain bill, and I'm going to put, for example, a bill that Senator Rowland put into the floor that it was regarding MSOC. And that is, well, how will put, is MSOC is material supplies and operation cost for the districts. So once it's approved in the education floor, then it goes to Ways and Means to see how much it will cost for the state to do so. So everybody that has maybe testified in the education portion of it, those testimonies stay in the education, do not go to the Ways and Means. So if you want to support the bill, you have to actually go and testify again. In the same with Senate rules, and once it goes to Senate rules and passes to the Senate floor, you also have to again go and talk to your legislators to support any bill. So any bill that is on the floor needs several months of support. So I've been communicating with the district when it's time to actually put our efforts, and every time that there's a bill, and every day, I think I put it up to date almost every night, which bills are being on the floor and which are not. There were some that were fantastic, and I have had comments that were that might not benefit necessarily our district that was taken out of the floor, and now it was one that will not help us in our district, and maybe they found some portion of the special education, and at the end it's not on the floor anymore. and that was one that will support, and this in the House, that will support fully fund special education. And that one is one that absolutely we're trying to support. I will be following, but I will be sending the report and following every night, kind of every single law that is related to education for our district for the 100 days that we are in legislature session. It's a lot of work, and I say that we are behind the scenes. We're working a lot. You see, that is true. Yes.
Oh, I was just gonna say on Thursday, I testified in support of Senator Hansen's bill 5308, which is expanding the Washington Guaranteed College Admissions Program, or WAGAP. It's something that I felt strongly about, brought it to the attention of the board in the spring. I was the only person from K through 12 who testified in support. There was an individual from the Gates Foundation from the University of Washington. It's actually Representative Reed's bill, one of just two education bills that was mentioned by Governor Ferguson during his inaugural address. I think phenomenal. In a nutshell, it would streamline the application process. So all students that qualified, which is if you have a minimum GPA of a three, would get an automatic acceptance letter letting them know that there's a spot for them at one of our institutes of higher learning. So it will remove barriers to the college application process, reduce stress and anxiety, and really is a bill that is equitable and I think can be transformative. I forget what Representative Reed's bill is. It was just submitted a couple of weeks ago, but I will keep you posted. Really good piece of legislation.
And that's a great example because that bill actually just changed committees to see if it will be funded, how it will be funded, etc. So that is how advocacy and leisure work is. So it is being on top. I think that there's a few ones that are very important that are coming up. That it is one is related to definitely special education was today, and there will be a few ones next Tuesday that will be related to levies and bonds that we'll be observing and keep monitoring. And I think that we'll keep sending my reports to the district when it's ready to be done. But by no means this is important the same way that we are preparing to go to at the federal level to actually talk to our legislators. And I think that that is mostly for us also a great partnership with our school districts because we will be pretty much advocating a lot for the fund that's will provide to the state. So it's been intense for us, I think. I don't know if I can say something or do you have any questions?
I just wanted to chime in to note that Senator Hansen, who's the sponsor of that bill, is an MIHS alum, senator from Cambridge Island. So, it is close enough to 6 o'clock, but I think we can start public comment. Just to let you know, we have 9 people signed up for public comment. So at 3 minutes each plus some transition time, that's about half an hour of public comment. Does anyone here need a break before we start that, or are we good to just dive in and get going?
If we get just a small break, we'll rearrange, bring up the podium.
Great,
and
we are
then
going to
feel free
rearrange.
just have a second.
Do you have anything else on our But do we need these tables here?
We do not.
We're going to take them out so that
I'll go right past.
all right, then I'll take this one.
Was that? Correct. And Next time, what would you like to see? Probably later.
Okay, we are ready for public comments. Seth planned out. It's our first. Just a reminder. Oh, I don't have the yours. I don't have the blur. This is not a. This is not a public. This is a meeting being held in public. It's not a public meeting where you are guaranteed interaction with the board. The board may choose to respond or to direct the superintendent to respond at a later date. Please do not mention any student names without permission of the parents. What am I forgetting? If you're part of a group, please appoint one speaker to speak on behalf of your group. And you can also submit written documentation, including sort of supplemental materials, to the board secretary. And okay. 3 minutes. Seth, you're on.
Well, John, I'm gonna leave one copy of this for the board to make copies of, and I'm gonna pass the rest out to the public. Some of you might not understand all of this, but there's a back story. The way you treated me and the matter of the coach head Pebble Court made me realize there's a problem with this board, and more so the superintendent. That got me involved in the way this school board superintendent operates. I would have never known. I'd like to thank you. What a disaster this board is. You hold illegal secret meetings in violation of the Open Meetings Act. You stifle First Amendment speech. You behave in a manner that is a very bad example for our kids. You have no clue about the details of the SAT, yet you wasted hours debating it. Then a number of you were going to get data and bring it back. Person focused on this could have all the answers on the SAT in a few days. Your own student board members said they needed guidance and weren't getting it. You have no clue about how many people want it here. This must and will be stopped. Today, I bring you a document that points out countless reasons that one of you should resign immediately. This document will also be given to the people of Mercer Island. I didn't write it. I did not compile it. It was given to me by parents who fear retribution if they come forward. I heard this from over a dozen, the same word, retribution. I have never heard so many people fear retribution from a school board or a superintendent. I've lived here for 62 years. Where there is retribution, there's also favoritism, both evil, especially with innocent kids. Maybe that's the reason NISH, a school rating agency, gave the administration here on Mercer Island a C grade. All the other top districts got an A or B for administration. So I'm going to leave a copy of this document about one of you school board members here for the school board and give the rest out to the people here. Fred, you made it clear none of the 1.5 million extra that you saved us was going to be used for salaries or anything paid from the general fund. So I have a question for you right now. Are you planning to use money from this new bond to pay things like salaries or anything that's typically paid out of the general fund? Short and sweet today. I even typed it up unlike the last time. I'll leave a copy. Where would you like your copy? Okay. Make sure that everybody gets it, gets a chance to see it. Remember, I didn't write this. Parents did that were afraid to come forward for restitution reasons. So I'm going to pass it out to all of you, or however many there are. There's a dozen of them here. You can share it with people on Mercer Island.
Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have Robin Lee.
Hi, first of all, thank you to the school board directors. I know this is a lot of work and we really appreciate your public service. So I'm a parent on the island. I've got 2 kids in the schools and I've been an active volunteer for over a decade. I'm a proud graduate of the MISD class of 1992 with Leaney's. And I've worked with 3 different superintendents on a range of district committees, including the long range facilities planning. I've been a room parent for over a decade, active volunteer in PTA, school libraries, school-based committees, band program, Destination Imagination, like So in short, I'm speaking to you from kind of the ground up, like, because I'm with the kids a lot, I'm with the teachers a lot. And I just have to say, like, I feel so fortunate to have Fred Rundle as our superintendent. I feel like I've been involved in the Rickon School District now for 45 years, and I have never felt more hopeful and more optimistic about the direction the district is going in and the opportunities for my kids. And like, I've seen this change just in the last few years. Like my 5th grader with the iReady math, like he comes home and we can see what he's doing and he's able to have this differentiated learning. And then my high schooler is off his phone, at least during the school day. And I can actually see the difference in his social skills and the way he's interacting with friends when they're at our house because of that. And anyway, I just feel really grateful. I think I moved back to Mercer Island for the schools, and I am so glad I did. You know, from I guess elementary through high school, it's just been getting better and better. And in the last few years, I've just really seen a sea change in terms of optimism, positivity from staff, from administrators, from students. And I mean, I just left my DI team and they're like, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to go talk about the superintendent. And this 5th grader was like, I love Fred. I was like, on first name basis. I mean, I remember when my older son was in elementary school, he didn't know what a superintendent was. And so I'm just really grateful for the way in which Fred shows up for our kids from the beginning of their education to the end and is really present. And I think he does a great job balancing community input, like around the school closures, and he's maintaining this high level of like intellectual and academic rigor. So our kids are really prepared to be successful in the workplace and successful in life. Thank you.
She can.
You're way up, you're gonna have to stand up from where we were. Okay. Hi, good evening. First, I want to say my name is Megan Banta. I'm a parent here on Mercer Island. I've got 2 kids who attend Lake Ridge, and I am proud to say I attended Mercer Island schools myself. First off, thank you to the school board. I have to start by saying thank you for your unanimous support voting yes for the school bond. They say if you want to know what a community or a person values, you should look to see where they invest their resources. So as a parent in the Mercer Island School District, I was really heartened to see you guys come together to support investing in our schools. Next, I want to just talk for a minute about my personal experience with Dr. Fred Rundle. I have to say, just when I thought your job couldn't be any harder, I found out that you get your performance review in public. And literally anyone can come in, including me, which is wild. So I worked with Dr. Rundle for a number of years, wearing a variety of hats, president of the Mercer Island Schools Foundation, PTA rep from Lake Ridge, and also sometimes just, you know, a mom advocating for the needs of my kids. I want to highlight just one effort in respect of the 3-minute time slot that I believe speaks to what Dr. Rundle values, based on where I saw him invest our resources. It's not a secret that over the past few years, we've lost a lot of students who have left for Hamlin Robinson School in Seattle. For those who may not be aware, Hamlin's a private school specializing in education for learners with dyslexia and language-based learning differences. During the 23-24 school year, the PTA organization SALAD, Special Services and Learning Differences, of which I'm a member, took action after hearing feedback from a lot of our members, some of whom had left for Hamlin Robinson, many of whom were still in the school district but were struggling. We worked with them. We surveyed parents who had left. We talked to parents who were still here and were having a hard time. We got feedback about people facing really similar frustrations about needs not getting met. We presented these findings to Dr. Rundle. He organized and hosted listening sessions as a follow-up to solicit feedback from families that might not have been a part of the surveys. As a direct result, this year we have a pilot program running at both Island Park and Northwood Elementaries with 6 classrooms across grades 1, 2, 3, and 5. These are pilots for dyslexia intervention. The teaching staff have been trained in specific dyslexia instruction. Learning support specialists are pushing into these classrooms. The students receive small group instruction, new curriculum, and new manipulatives.
While the assessment data for the past few weeks, hasn't been fully resulted yet, apologies. Executive Director Nova Williams, who I was banging down her door for some data. She was able to share with me that many of the students in these pilot classrooms have already made a year's worth of growth in as little as the last 4.
Thanks, Megan. Next, we have Sharon Perez.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the students and the board, our school leaders, and our community members for taking your time tonight to benefit our schools. Thank you all very much. I'm Sharon Perez. I'm the mother of a senior and a freshman at Mercer Island High School, and I'm here tonight to express my strong support for Superintendent Rundle and his leadership of the Mercer Island School District. I've known Fred for over 12 years, dating back to my time as a volunteer and PTA board member at West Mercer Elementary. I clearly remember our meetings in the library. I think you were our school rep at that time. And over the years, I've remained an active volunteer across our school system, starting with MIPA and now through the high school years, serving in various roles, including currently positions on the Band Boosters Board and the Community Fund Board. Fred and I also served together in the Mercer Island Rotary Club, and I've had the opportunity to interact with him at numerous community events. This long-standing association has given me a unique perspective on his dedication to our schools, our students, and our broader community. What stands out to me most is that Fred's thoughtful, collaborative approach and his genuine care for both the academic success and well-being of our students. He listens carefully to parents, students, staff, and builds meaningful relationships and works tirelessly to keep Mercer Island schools strong and forward-thinking. His leadership is marked by integrity, transparency, and a clear vision for the future of education on the island. Dr. Rundle's steady, experienced guidance is exactly what we need during these changing and sometimes challenging times. I fully support his vision for our school district to stay the place that offers our children a diversity of experiences, including science, drama, athletics, leadership organizations, and caring community service. Thank you all so much.
Next, we have Lisa Dean. Thank you, Sharon.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Rundle, which I'm just gonna say Fred, since that's, okay, Fred.
That's how we're.
And to all our community members. So I'm Lisa Dean, and I am a very proud member of the Mercer Island School District. And I'm here tonight to show strong support for Fred. Leadership is just not about perfection. It is about progress, dedication, and bringing people together to serve students first. And that is exactly what Dr. Rundle does every single day. Now, does he get it 100% right all the time? No, no leader does. But when challenges arise, he just leans in, he listens, he learns, and he adapts. And he just models that growth mindset and that resilience that we all want to instill in our students and frankly in all of us. So I agree with what we said tonight. I had no idea this was a public event, and I get nervous about my own evaluation. So I was like, what does the evaluation look like? So when I looked at WASDA, and I just want to say why, looking at the WASDA superintendent rubric, just why Fred stands out with his leadership. So Fred leads with vision and purpose. He makes data-driven decisions rather than relying on popular opinions or trends. He doesn't care what's going on next door or who comes into. He's going to make the right decisions based upon data, what's best for our kids. He just doesn't collect information either. He communicates it clearly and transparently to the board, to the staff, and to the community, just ensuring that we all understand what's going on and where we're headed and why. He is so deeply committed to equity and to student success. He works to ensure that every student feels valued and supported. Under his leadership, we've expanded efforts to close achievement gaps and create a more inclusive school environment, something that I'm just so proud of. His focus on student learning means prioritizing curriculum, instruction, and assessment that are aligned to state and district goals, but more importantly, he's responsive to our student needs. Fred has just strengthened safety and support systems across our district in this really uncertain time. In these areas, he's led for the development of highly effective crisis response plan that we've used many times very effectively. He's expanded mental health support, including bringing a mental health screener to MIHS and IMS to help us identify our students early. And that was entirely Fred who did that. Even in this tough financial climate, he's managed a district budget responsibly. We're building our budget reserve in a time where a lot of districts are not. He's ensuring that our priorities stay student focused despite the state funding shortfalls. So for me though, it's like beyond that rubric stuff, what makes so special, what truly sets Dr. Rendell apart is his ability to build relationships. He connects with family, students, and the broader community, as you can just see evident here tonight. If you haven't attended one of his student superintendent advisory, which we've heard about, it's amazing. So I just want to just say in short, Superintendent Rendell is the leader for our district. Just your vision, your accountability, your student-centered approach. We just couldn't be on this path without you. Thank you so much.
Good evening, and thank you so much to the board and students for being here, for your time, and community members. My name is Jamie Lundeen. I'm the mother of two current students here. One's at Mercer Island High School and the other's at Islander Middle School. I would like to express my unwavering support for Dr. Rendell. Throughout his tenure, Dr. Rendell has consistently demonstrated commitment to fostering an inclusive, equitable, and supportive environment for all students, particularly those from marginalized communities. In a time when the rights of LGBTQIA+ students and staff are under increasing scrutiny, Dr. Rendell has stood firm in protecting these students' safety, dignity, and rights. His leadership in maintaining a safe space for all students, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation, has been remarkable. He's ensured that our district remains a place where every student feels seen, valued, and supported, even in the face of external pressures from executive orders that could undermine their well-being. As a loving and frankly very scared parent, knowing that our superintendent would demonstrate moral courage in these times means everything to me and my family. More recently, when the Islander Middle School was targeted with racist and anti-Semitic graffiti, Dr. Rendell demonstrated exemplary leadership in addressing the situation. His swift and thoughtful response helped guide our district through a traumatic experience. His commitment to holding those responsible accountable while also fostering healing and solidarity within the community has been a source of strength for us all. Furthermore, I'd like to commend Dr. Rendell's leadership during the district's recent financial crisis. Dr. Rendell skillfully navigated these challenges, prioritizing the needs of students while working to secure the district's future. His advocacy and collaboration in efforts to pass the bond, to improve, modernize our schools, will undoubtedly benefit all of our kids, ensuring they have access to the best possible educational resources and environments. In these trying times, it takes courage and resilience to advocate for what is right, and Dr. Rendell has shown both in abundance. His ability to balance financial stability with a compassionate, inclusive vision for our students is a testament to his exceptional leadership and dedication. I urge the board and community members to continue to support his efforts. Dr. Rendell is a leader who genuinely cares for every single student, and I have no doubt that his work will continue to make a lasting and positive impact on our district. Thank you. Good evening, MISD School Board Directors. I'm honored to be here to make a public comment today regarding the agenda item monitoring superintendent performance. My name is Sarah Kareem. I am a parent to a child who has been in the school district for the past 4 years. And ever since, I've had the honor of working with Superintendent Fred Rundle, including as part of an advisory council, as former president and current co-president of Lakeridge Elementary PTA, and as current president-elect of the Mercer Island PTA Council. Further, as part of my professional capacity as a facilitator and as a consultant that focuses on furthering belonging and in organizations and institutions, I've had the pleasure of collaborating with Dr. Rundle to deliver belonging workshops to parent advisory communities, as well as to the MIC staff on professional development days. Needless to say, I've had the opportunity to interact in multiple capacities with Dr. Rundle and have observed him in action in small as well as large group meetings to navigate feedback by varying types of concerned parents across multiple and diverse issues, including concerns that I have brought forward in what parents have come to me about. I know him to be a deep listener to every single constituent, and I have noticed that for every constituent that reaches out to Dr. Rundle, he has been responsive to ensure that they feel heard, sometimes I should say, at cost to himself. At the same time, I've consistently seen Dr. Rundle centering students and trying his best to ensure a safe and inclusive learning environment for all MISD students. Further, in a time period when our state legislature is not meeting its paramount duty to fully fund our school districts, I witnessed him collaborating with educators and the administration and trying his best to develop policies within the financial restrictions that our district faces. I've had the opportunity to work in my professional capacity with superintendents in other school districts, and I would like to share that I been reflecting on my work with them and also thinking about how I closely worked with Dr. Rundle. I cannot express enough gratitude that we have him as a leader for our school district and for our children. I thank the school board for entrusting him to carry out what he can do for our children to the best of his capacity. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie Shea, parent to 2 kids at Islander Middle School, and I'm here to express my support for Dr. Fred Rundle. I remember the first time I interacted with Fred. That was when I invited him to join the PTA Reflections Art Awards ceremony. It was his first year as superintendent, and he really enjoyed taking photos with the proud student artists and presenting their awards. I often see Fred at our high school orchestra performances, and for the past 2 years, he sat at the top of the bleachers to support the joint middle school choir, orchestra, and band holiday concert. He also regularly attends the high school drama production. So we'll likely see him at PUCS, which is opening tonight.
Be there tomorrow.
Yes. And so I really appreciate his support for the arts. And while many districts are cutting their arts programs, we have one of the very best fine arts programs. In case you haven't heard, our high school orchestra, directed by Brian Kolk, will be performing at Carnegie Hall in New York City this April. And it's thanks to Fred's support of the arts, as he knows the importance of our fine arts programs for our students and our community. And we look forward to his continued support and commitment to our amazing fine arts programs. I also want to recognize the school board for all the work you do for our community. And thank you all for unanimously voting to put forward the school bond. Maggie Ty, Jody, Christina, Deborah, Dan, you're all parents, just like us. You're our neighbors and you're our friends. I admire you all for taking on a role that many of us just don't want. It's stressful during the campaign, and it doesn't ease up once you get elected to your position. It's a tremendous time commitment to prepare for each board meeting and a test of endurance and focus at meetings which can last up to 5 hours. I am grateful for your service to our community. I think the best part about being on the school board is you get to meet and honor at your meetings all the amazing students who excel, winning state and national awards in sports and performing arts and literature and robotics and cybersecurity and debate and radio. The list just goes on and on. We just had 125 MIHS DECA students qualify for the Washington State DECA championship, the highest number ever in our district. DECA programs help students to develop business skills. Our students are getting admitted to top universities and Ivy League schools. We have an excellent school district, and I'm proud and grateful to be part of this community.
Our final speaker is Tom Hacker.
I actually am changing topics tonight. I didn't know it was a Fred Rundle contract night, but I think you guys need to do a lot more due diligence. I think there's a lot of stuff coming out that you need to evaluate. I wasn't part of the lobbying committee that came in to even talk about pro or con. Obviously, Fred does chair squad out. Fred, you're great. You're very personable, but there are major issues. Even while I'm sitting here, a parent said, I've got 2 unanswered emails from Fred. This is not true. But I really came here to just basically see a math problem. And it's the math programs, it's the bond. You're not going to hit 60%. I did calculations today. I went through it with one of the pro bond supporters, and I will keep an open mind, but there have to be significant changes with this board. And I just went through the presentation that the gentleman handed me. You're going to have to look into that. There's going to be a public disclosure request coming from me soon. If the values that some of these speakers talked about and the values that are in your policies and process about code of conduct hold up, there should be a resignation, honestly. I don't know. Somebody put a lot of time into grabbing screenshots and stuff, but representing yourself as a board of director and then posting that kind of stuff is kind of reckless. And there are seemingly pro-Palestinian things in there, so that creates some divisiveness within our community as well. But 2 examples that I wanted to bring up because folks asked me, actually had 50 people reach out to me after I spoke last time about retaliation and toxicity. I think everybody's covered the toxic board and are familiar with that. But when kids are ordering lunch to school and the teacher comments that, oh, you must be homophobic because you're eating Chick-fil-A, or a 4th grader is self-selecting out of an elementary school because they're learning nothing. And that they're made to feel like they're an oppressor because of gender politics. You've got a problem. And the toxicity starts at the board, it goes down through the administration, and it goes to the school. And this presentation I just saw kind of validates all that. You've got real issues here, and I get it. Right? You are a wonderful person. You've never said no to a meeting, but nothing ever comes out of those meetings. There's not any results. So when it comes to the bond, I don't think the community needs to see a return on investment. And whether you're pro the bond or against the bond, nobody has disputed the 14 points that I brought up, and they all agree with them. The argument is don't hold the kids hostage. I'd say don't hold the senior citizens hostage against this bond. But you got to fix the math problems, and you have to focus on critical thinking. That is not happening. And and I want to thank you all for your service. Sitting up here, been there, done that. It's hard. I get it. Thank you.
That concludes public input for tonight. So we are going to take a short break to grab some food and take some breaks. And if people want to leave instead of sitting at the rest of the meeting, they're welcome to. But before we take a break, we wanted to wish a happy birthday to our own Ava. Congratulate her and her peers on making it through to the next level of DECA competition. And come back at 6:40. I'm almost at it. Okay, we are back. Back we are. Okay. So we are moving on to board policy 1605, the annual superintendent summative evaluation. And just to be clear, for anyone who might have been confused by some of the comments, this is not a review of the superintendent's contract, which we renewed last June. This is the end of a product of the board meeting in executive session, as is allowed by Washington State Open Public Meeting Act to review the performance of an employee. So we have had some meetings where we've discussed what goes into the letter. Everyone on the board has had a chance to look at the letter. This is where we decide whether or not we want to vote with the letter. So, just should we read it? Like, sorry, I don't remember how we do this.
Typically just.
Just go around and okay.
Because it's been posted.
It's fine. It's the report. Oh, the students, you mean?
No, sorry.
No, let's just start. Do you guys want to have anything you want to say? Sorry, I asked when your mouth is full.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Arnold. We've been so blessed to have you as like a mentor, and I'm like speaking for both of us, but like, yeah, like I feel like you've really helped like uplift student voices and like really make us feel seen, and like meeting with us, like you truly do care. And like even at the Ledge conference, like sitting down with us for 2 hours to go through and explain like what bond rates, like how the tax rates work, and like explaining all that to us, it really shows that you do care about like the student voice and student understanding and students having a stake, and it's not just like a superficial position. And then also like through the SSA, you really do show that you care as well, and like uplifting student voices and helping those students feel like they have a say in like what's going on in the district as well. And you really do show up at like all the community events. Like somehow I always see Dr. Ronald there, and I'm like, how is it humanly possible to be at every single event, but you make it happen? And yeah, I just feel like like even talking to a lot of other student reps, like not a lot of them are able to say that they like appreciate their superintendents, maybe not are like, they're not the same as you. And so we're really appreciative to have you.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Eva has to say. You've definitely been an incredible mentor for me starting out this year. You know, it's difficult to start out on the board as the junior rep, right? But through Dr. Ronald's guidance, you know, I've really found my place, and I've really been able to understand what's going on, especially, you know, staying down with us for 2 hours again. That was incredibly kind, and you repeatedly do things like that where you talk to us, have us, you know, answer our questions. You're very cool, answer emails all the time, like all that sort of thing. You're a very great leader. And definitely as well with SSA, I think that has definitely been a great place where we've shown leadership and really, you know, great understanding of student voice. You do an amazing job helping us uplift student voice through that and really have students be the center of that, and help uplift their projects, what they want to do, listen to their voice and the needs of students and what students within SSA want to do for their projects, all that. I think you definitely have a great foothold in what the student body needs and a great foothold in what needs to be improved. You know, throughout my years here, I've definitely seen improvements throughout the schools, and really just great leadership for you, Dr.
Sure. Kind of the Fred Rendell show today. It kind of always is, which is a really great thing. I just wanted to express my gratitude for the work that you do on a really like daily basis. I mean, it's really 24/7, 365. I've told this story before, but I'm not sure I've ever said it to you. When I first was thinking about running for the board, you know, I didn't know you. I mean, you were down at Lake Ridge and my daughter was at Island Park and heard fantastic things. It's like, is this guy for real? Like, how can this be, right? And then started working with you and we learning services when I first came onto the board, and I was like, oh, all right, if he's for real, right? And really watching you grow from where you were then when I first joined the board, and I know it's been learning all along, but and taking on the new roles and really stepping into the new challenges that you face seamlessly. The way that I kind of used to describe different types of superintendents where, there's the HR side and there's the learning services side. And it's like, okay, well, Fred's coming from HR or that learning services side. So, we'll see how the other stuff works. And yet I think that your strength is your relationships. And I think you would say the same thing. And people are here and want to be here in order because of those relationships that you establish with them. One of the very first things I noticed was during our site visits, my first year on board, and we were visiting elementary schools. And there, I'm in Fred's group. I was in your group many, many years times. I don't know why, but I was. And watching him walk into, I don't know, kindergarten, first, second grade, like little guys, and walking in and sitting down on the floor and engaging and like doing the activity with the kids. And the rest of us were kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess we can interact with the kids. And just watching you do that. And it was such a privilege for me, and it is a privilege because it still happens every time we go, just a privilege to see the way teachers interact with our students when parents aren't there. And it's just such, it's such a privilege to be able to see that in a way that I think most parents don't get to see. The impact that adults who care about them have on their lives. And the way that you've been able to show those true relationships, and you mean it. Like, you don't always get the nicest emails or the nicest interactions, and yet you go back and it's earnest and it's sincere with wanting to learn and wanting to understand and then wanting to make things better, knowing that it's not always going to be, but you still keep trying every day. I've learned a lot from you in terms of just kind of picking yourself up, brushing yourself off and giving it a go again. So your resilience and your determination to do the right thing and make the right choices. I mean, this summer in June when you called me and said, we're going phone free. And I was like, you're nuts. Because I thought it was going to take over our world. And then, but just then stepping back and saying, okay, how do we roll this out? How do we educate our community? And how do we communicate with our community so that they really know like the why and then the how, and let's do this. And I'm in awe of the success. I actually have gone and deleted all the games from my phone in the last 2 weeks. And that's in large part because of the impact that you've had and really wanting to do better for me. And so thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. As I begin my last year on the board, I'm looking forward to seeing what else you can accomplish, and then just making sure that I'm here to make that easier in any way that I can. And it doesn't mean that I don't challenge when I think that there's things that, aren't things that can be challenged, and you always meet that with openness and encouragement. So I appreciate it. And thank you. And I look forward to focusing next.
So I will say that first of all, I love always hearing the students. So I'm so happy that you feel that he's a mentor for you. It is something that it's really worth to acknowledge. Having have been mentors to all the students, not only this one but past. So I think that we have had different moments in time to be in a different relationship. And in the past year that I've been in this position, you were in that. I have valued very much how open you have been to receive my multiple and detailed questions and I feel sometimes very guilty that I request so many data or ask you, I don't know, to kind of go back and review some things, because I know that also your time is valuable and also the time of your staff. And sometimes I really need to say like, this doesn't match, like I need to know, and sometimes it does. So I feel that we have had a great relationship when I can ask questions and give some data, and like I said, like, and now what? So we have the data, and what do we do with this? And I think that also this is part of us as your super, the ones that are evaluating you, that with all the things that we have grown during the last year, is what do we do with data, and how are we going to help you grow, and we would love to help you grow and make sure that every single kid in the district really meets their full potential. So it is, as much as it's an evaluation of you, I hope that it's also an evaluation of us on how can we support to ensure that we are also supporting the students by making you a good leader, and also ensuring that the staff is also supported in that way. So I think that also is a matter of what it is. And one of the things that I also have to acknowledge is also how you have let every staff and students know that they belong in this school district. And I think that in this difficult time, and I think that we heard it tonight, and it has been a very, regardless of who you are, where you are in life, this past 2 weeks have been very difficult for every human, every adult, and it's confusing also for the children. And I think that letting people know that this is the place, that the school is a safe place for every single student, and that through your leadership and then for the staff, the principals, the students can have a place to belong while we continue this and see where we go for. So I not only admire, but I also look forward to keep working with you, and also see how you rise as a leader during this challenging times, because there will be challenging times coming very, very soon. So, and let us know how we can support you to be that leader, and to make sure that every single student gets more support emotionally, for mental health, if it's academically or anything. The way that us can be there also for the district matters too. So, and that's
yeah. Brett, thank you for your dedication, your passion, and for connecting with so many individuals in our community over the last 15 plus years with the Mercer Island School District, including for the past 3 years as the superintendent. You were tireless in your efforts and unique in the relationships that you have formed. But being a superintendent, particularly in a community such as ours, is challenging and requires many different skills. Accordingly, it is with a heavy heart that I cannot vote in favor of your performance review tonight. I do not believe that we as a school district can realize our potential and ensure the best outcomes for our students until we have the courage to recognize our deficiencies and failures, not just our strengths and victories. And I do not believe that the performance review that is presented to us tonight reflects that reality, that there are concerns, that perhaps we aren't headed in the direction that the community wants, and that we should consider plotting a different course. First, as pertains to operational expectations 1 and 9, there are concerns about our academic direction, including whether we are successfully creating personalized learning environments that allow all students to thrive, our commitment to maintaining the highest learning standards, and the effective measurement of academic progress. It seems that we are no longer capable of doing even the simple things to help our students succeed, such as offering the SAT during the school day like neighboring districts. But it is not just that. It is parents who are worried that their middle school students are discouraged, and in some cases prevented from doing homework, who, unsurprisingly, often find themselves ill-prepared when they enter high school. It is parents of elementary students who are uncertain if their children are learning or languishing in classrooms increasingly reliant on iPads for instruction. And it is parents and community members who wonder if open enrollment facilitated by Facebook and Google ad placements will lead to large class sizes, and if that approach to education embodies our values and our direction. Second, as pertains to operational expectations 6, 7, and 9, there are concerns about finances, including restoring adequate annual budget reserves, focusing resources on classroom instruction, and timely advising the board about changes in financial assumptions. We are only 4 months into a 3-year labor contract and are being told that we may need to make deep cuts to our courses and curriculum so that we can satisfy our financial obligations. When I approved the contract back in September, it was my understanding that it was consistent with our financial expectations and would not jeopardize the integrity of the education. Now it appears that we may have entered into a contract that we cannot afford. I find that alarming. Third, as pertains to operational expectation 3, there are concerns about our ability to disagree and engage in healthy discussions, including maintaining an organizational culture that treats parents and citizens with respect, dignity, and courtesy. When parents, community members, and even board directors feel retaliated against for asking questions and proposing solutions, how can we ensure that the best ideas are being considered? It's concerning that there's a refusal to engage with facts and when seemingly innocuous data, such as statistics about the number of students who take the SAT in neighboring school districts, is met with hostility. If we can't even discuss the SAT, what other discussions are we not having? And if we aren't having those discussions and conversations because of a climate of fear, then how do we know that we are keeping our children safe and doing the best to prepare them for the future? So, for the reasons listed above, as well as the specific instances described in my memo dated January 14th, I cannot approve the superintendent's performance review presented to us tonight.
Thank you, Dr.
I want to put just in the thrilling world of personnel management, because as some of you know, like my 20-year career was personnel mediation. Sorry. Anyway, whatever.
You go first.
You go.
Okay. I'm jumping the line here, jumping the queue to say that I have known 3 superintendents here on Mercer Island. The first one I only knew kind of in passing, like because my ex-husband was involved in fundraising at that time, and we hosted a number of school district events at our house, that kind of thing. The second one, of course, I worked with closely when I first got on the board during COVID and during the superintendent search. And then you are the third one, Fred. And that of all 3 of those, you have been by far the best at taking the board's vision and turning it into action. So when we hired you, we very specifically listed communication as one of our priorities. We really wanted to improve how the district communicated with families, how the district communicated our successes, possible improvement points, everything. And I have to say that you and also Ian have totally taken that mission and run with it. We are, in my estimation, probably at least 10 times better now at communicating to the public compared to before you took over as superintendent. So that's one of the items that's kind of pulled out in the letter here. So that's number 1. So thank you for kind of taking our vision. When the board as a whole gives you direction, you just run with it, which is fantastic. Number 2 is that it's not easy taking direction from a board of people that changes every 2 years, right? And that also has a lot of strong personalities on it at any given moment. In a community that has a lot of strong personalities, and not only strong personalities, but high achieving personalities who are very used to being able to just make things happen, in their workplace. And so they, come across a snag point in their child's education and they go, let me fix it for you. Let me solve this for you. I have a great idea, and I have to say I did the same thing when I first got on the board. I was like, oh, I just had this great idea. And Tracy Drinkwater, my predecessor, sat me down and was like, look, the teachers already have to do 20 different, they're working on 20 different initiatives that other people have pushed through. If you come in with your 21st initiative, do you know how much harder you're making their day? And I was kind of like, oh, that's sobering. Okay. But so so dealing with strong personalities in a community full of strong, kind of smart, successful personalities is not
always easy, and I know it has been a particularly rough couple of weeks for everybody. And I just really admire that you're able to come into work every day, not necessarily with a smile on your face, but with a positive attitude and a growth mindset and a willingness to reach out and to learn from people, to hear from people. So the other thing I wanted to say is that the long range facility planning process, even though I myself haven't been super involved in it, I didn't serve on the committee like Deborah and Dan did. That, in my experience, has been as diametrically opposite of an experience for the community as what happened 12 years ago or however many years ago was, with the failed bond attempt. Like you guys have really, you and the committee have really gone out and listened to the community and listened to the students, listened to the teachers, listened to, people around the sites, and really come up with a plan that incorporated as much as possible of kind of what people wanted. So just total respect for how you managed that process with, again, lots of strong personalities. There's kind of a theme here tonight. And just that I don't know why your annual, until now, the superintendent summative evaluation has been kind of like a snoozer of a item on the agenda. So there's a lot of static, as Matt said earlier this evening, there's a lot of static right now around the school board and the district and district leadership and, bond, no bond, whatever. And I just hope it doesn't detract from the real essence of what your job is and what you're doing. I was really pleased to hear about the pilot program for kids with dyslexia. And, and I was like, ooh, I can't wait to hear more about that when there's some data to share about that. But I was also like, that's pretty amazing that all of that was going on and I didn't even know about it. That's a complaint that I've heard for many years, especially under the previous superintendent, that we weren't doing enough for kids with dyslexia. So hearing that parents came to you, you listened to them, you reached out to other parents who might not have been represented, and you already got this program kind of up and running, that's just fantastic. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
I'm just gonna say you have my complete confidence and appreciation, and I have excellent prepared remarks, but I'm not gonna do them.
Thank you. All of that said, is there any motion?
Can we just reiterate, I move that we approve, the Dr. Rundle's, assessment for the year that, but that the summative evaluation is very prescriptive. Under policy governance, we have been monitoring, as Fred was saying earlier, our OEs, so our operational expectations, as well as our student-focused fundamentals. And we do that throughout the year. Throughout the year, they have been virtually 100% in compliance. There's been a couple things with regards to fund balance, and I think that's it, which is one portion of the monitoring reports. Everyone can vote, I guess, how they wish, but our monitoring now is based on the past with regards to how we voted at the time and how we made determinations at the time with regards to these operational expectations and policy and fundamentals. And so with that being said, and that is based on policy governance and the model and board policy 1605. I move that we find superintendent.
I would like to respond.
I haven't finished my sentence.
Yeah.
That we find that he has appropriately and effectively accomplished the goals that the board has set out for.
I would like to get a second on that, and then we can have more discussion. Can we get a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Yeah.
I have already made clear that provision 5 and our board policy 1605 says we can monitor any metric at any time by any method, so long as it pertains to actions over the previous year, which is our policy. Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Okay. All in favor of finding the superintendent, all in favor of approving the superintendent summative evaluation, please say aye. Students?
Aye.
Board members?
Aye.
Any abstaining? Any opposed?
Opposed.
So that's 2-0, 4-1 with 1 opposed. Thank you. And with that, we are going to superintendent report.
Great. Let me lead by just kind of weighing into the evaluation process. And first, I just have to turn to the staff and say that, you know, our team is what makes it happen, and no one's harder on themselves than all of you. You're the first to tell yourselves when you haven't met an expectation of yourself, and some of those are extremely high. And you call me on the phone and say, it's no surprises in our district. I just want to let you know, blank. And sometimes you have nothing to do with it, but because you're leaders of schools and departments and you take incredible pride in what you do. And my success is our success, and your success is hopefully our success as well. And whether or not it's new pilots that will report to you about an OB10 or the data that's coming back. We're in the middle of the year and we're getting to see some amazing data coming back with kids who are growing and achieving. And I think we've known that before, but we never had a way to quantify it nor to push ourselves and to talk about it. And I just want to thank all of you. It's a hard job. Being in education is only going to get harder, but it's worth it because of the students. And for our board, you know, being part of this governance team is what it's really about. We're only going to be as strong as our governance team working together. And we have plenty of goals that we still need to achieve. And we took a stroll down memory lane today, Director Sullivan and myself, and I kind of walked you through the history of all the different people who have come and gone in different roles in this building. And, you know, we're doing a lot with not a lot of personnel at times. We would love to have more administrators, more support staff, more bus drivers, you know, but we're working with what we have right now. And I've appreciated all of your support along the way. With that said, we have a lot we want to accomplish still. And we're going to set those goals and continue moving forward. But thanks to our team for being here, and thank you to all of you. So other things, just a couple other things as far as updates. Computer. We had already mentioned we have the opening night of Puff tonight. And if any board members are interested and haven't signed up, let me know if there's a night you're going so I can let them know that you're on your way. I'll be there tomorrow night. Looking very much forward to another great performance by our drama team. The pro-con appointments. Remember, next Thursday, you'll appoint the pro-con. We'll bring you the list of the people who have signed up online. And so we do. We have at least one for both of them so far on pro and con. And then with that, Erin, can you talk just briefly about the election parameters of board members? We said that we would bring this forward to the board just to give you an update. I have an attachment that Director Battersby put together of just reminders that now that we've entered the official election time frame, all the things that we have to be aware of as staff, but you also have to be aware of as a board. We've talked about them, but wanted to just check in on those.
Yeah, so essentially, this is just a reminder of what you can do as a board and what you can do as individuals. You don't lose your rights as individuals. I want to be very clear. It's to take, to have your own political opinions in bond activities, but you need to be clear of when you're speaking for yourself and when you're speaking for the board. The board as a whole can, and it's outlined here, they can, the board as a whole can pass a resolution to support something. They can engage in public comment. They can respond to public comment. You can ensure that staff such as myself or Executive Director Sullivan or Dr. Rundle communicate things in a fair and impartial way, right? So all of those things can happen, but what you can't do is direct staff on their own time or during district time try to support a particular ballot measure or candidate, in this case, the ballot measure with respect to bond, right? We also can't use public resources such as vehicles, printers, emails to try to support a measure, but we can, to a limited extent, just with respect to the school district, issue like a one-page mailing that gives factual information, which also must include the tax implications on the bond. So it has to be purely factual. So there's sort of parameters on that. To the extent that you want to engage in political activities, on your political time, you can do that. You just can't use public resources. So you can't borrow Tony Coon's van or truck and then like put signs on it and drive down the middle of the island. But more importantly is things like emails. That's most commonly what would come up, or using our copiers or printers. That's the more common way people get in trouble. Similarly, you can't have meetings to promote it in this space, though people can use, consistent with our facility use agreements, they can use our space on an equal opportunity. So if a group that wants to support the bond wants to rent the space, they can do that to just a group that didn't want to support the bond. So you have to have equal rights there. And when you can use your official title, it says there, when discussing political matters, but you have to clarify when you're speaking in your private capacity, or when you're speaking on behalf of the board. When you're speaking on behalf of the board, that typically will be because the board has adopted a resolution, you're speaking within the ambit of that resolution. Do you have any questions about, I mean, you've adopted resolutions in the past. I think all of you did on the board when a resolution has been adopted. Do you have any questions about this or about how you can answer questions? Again, you can answer questions in response to ballot measures during press conference or public forums, but you need to make sure that your responses remain factual and aligned within an adopted resolution to the extent there is one, but they need to be factual, which means I encourage everyone, staff and board members alike, to avoid any hyperbole or exaggerating or really playing on heartstrings, that type of thing.
Yeah, so I guess to that point, I mean, this is not specific to bond, but just political activity, right? And it says, avoid emotionally charged language, refrain from publishing testimonials or staged photos. How would referring to a funding crisis fall? Would that be emotionally charged?
It would depend on, I think it would depend on the context. I'd want it to be back to specific scenario.
I can share some photos later where there was called a funding crisis, which seems pretty emotionally charged to me.
Well, I'm happy to look at that if you have questions about the appropriateness of a specific thing. However, it often, I'd want to look at it specifically.
Sure.
But I would say that commenting on the funding of a district, as long as it is factual, and I think I've heard the term funding crisis outside of any reference to a specific bond. So I think.
Well, just political, like the point being that where it becomes political speech, it's not specific to a bond. It's just.
Okay, sorry.
As an employee or staff of the district.
You can say superintendent.
Well,
okay.
There's many people who use the language of funding crisis. It was not just you.
Okay, so I'm happy to look at it and look at that. I don't know that was related to a specific political measure, and I wouldn't know without looking at the speech. So if you question that, I'm happy to look into that. But with respect to this, if you responded to questions about the bond, so that's the political thing we're dealing with right now. Again, the idea is to be factual, make sure that it's aligned with whatever adopted resolution you have, and avoid hyperbole to the extent possible.
So if the board were to decide to make a resolution in support of the bond, then it sounds like we have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of what we're allowed to do or how we're allowed to advocate. Like we're allowed to speak sort of more on behalf of the district as regards the bond. Is that correct?
Well, you have to share factual information. So you can say, the board has already approved you voted to put the bond out, correct?
Yeah.
And so then now our requirement as a district is to share factual information about the bond, respond factually and transparently as to what the advantages and disadvantages are.
Okay, because I'm just looking here on page 2. It says like what the school board needed to do. Number 1, adopt a resolution. Correct. So that's different. That's separate from us
putting the bond forward.
That's typically when it's not something that the board already, well, I mean, we're putting it on the ballot. So clearly we endorse it.
Okay.
When it's a different,
Somebody else's.
someone
state
else's, we can as a board vote
I see.
to support it.
Well, we've endorsed putting it to voters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then voted.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. Thank you.
There is precedent, though, that there have been boards who have made a resolution about their own resolution. Like that has happened before, where they may, and so it does happen.
Yeah, and I think you'd want to, again, that is true. It has happened. There's nothing prohibiting it necessarily, but you still want to make sure the communication materials present balanced facts, including tax implications and potential downsides, because you don't want to paint a real picture and be accused of misleading the public. The consequences of that, which is further down, there could be civil penalties up to a $10,000 violation. You could void the election results if the violation effect is determined to impact the outcome. And there's reputational harm to the district, right? And that's significant at the end of the day. The district will outlast all of us, so we need to be good stewards of it for the benefit of the students here now and the students that are to come in the future and for our community. It also could impact future funding opportunities or it can delay in bond issuance and tax collection up to a year. So those are the potential consequences of failure to adhere to the PDC guidelines. But I'm happy to speak if you have specific questions. I'm happy to respond to that and answer questions, but I can also get outside counsel where this is their specific area of expertise, if that makes people more comfortable. And sharing information going down to the WAC, you will probably see that we'll share information that may be about facilities or things that are going on, as long as that's part of your normal and customary approach to communications, that's fine. So for example, we, our Ian Henry over here, he uses social media very often. What would be problematic is all of a sudden he changed the usage rate and what he's talking about. That would be problematic. But if it's just consistent, like how we're taking a picture of people in, I don't know, in the pack, and then someone notices that the pack doesn't look the way it as modern as they want, that's not a problem. So does that help? But if we were to pay to boost stories or things like that we wouldn't have normally done, that would be considered problematic. And that's all the types of things that PDC looks at, and things are changing over time. So that's why where it used to be the use of vehicles and telefax, that's the reference is telefax, now it's emails and social media. Teletype, I don't know what about some weird technology I never used. But now it's email, social media, and that type of thing, which the district received this.
So if you have questions, let us know. But we're underway, obviously, with the bond that you put as a resolution.
I just wanted to clarify one thing, that it's a civil penalty for misleading or opinion in either way, whether it's supportive or detrimental. Is it? Okay.
Paid by the person who knows that they makes the violations.
Okay.
Just a couple more things. One is last Friday, I sent a letter to our staff, just clarifying, our values and who we are as a school district, especially with respect to changes in potential immigration enforcement and immigration laws. I think this week we've seen a number of new executive orders come through from the new president, specifically around federal dollars and what that might mean for school districts and school funding. So the plan tomorrow, I'm waiting on the time, but I believe Superintendent Reichdahl is going to convene the superintendents from across the state to give a general update. From there, then I'll craft another message, make sure that you see it and others, but also send it to our community as well as our staff, just kind of where we are. There's so much out there. There's so much confusion, the litigation aspect to it. What does it really mean for a state like Washington? We have our laws, the federal laws. I mean, this is a classic test of states' rights versus federal rights and local control in our state versus central control. So a lot will be coming, but I'll be updating our community as well as certainly you and our staff. Next, I wanted to just kind of put out there, especially this time of year, I know you're getting lots of questions from community members and about a variety of topics. And some of those are things that you need information from me. And what I was wondering is, unless it's emergent, something might come up that's more of an emergency, but if I kind of hold all of those, get them answered and put it in the board update each week, and then say, this was submitted, and then give you an update so that you're all seeing what your questions are, but then everyone's going to get it. If you have something though that is more emergent, always texting is easier than, an email, or if we just need to jump on a phone call as well, if that works for you. Great. And that should do it.
Okay. Do we have a student report this week, or is this not? No, this is not weekend. Who is looking forward to this? On the spot. Yeah. We're gonna put this, yeah. Okay. We already had.
I was really wondering what's gonna happen on your birthday.
Oh, yeah.
You might not want to share that.
Yeah. So we've already had our legislative report today. Board announcements, inquiries, and reports.
I have we've been really busy, but not with like outside meetings, or at least I haven't. I did just want to mention that I attended a party that was part of the Band Boosters auction last spring. And it was sign up and go. And it was just fun. It was fun to meet people in the community that I don't normally interact with. And I think people are really craving that, the adults are craving that social aspect. I keep, just reminding of the school's foundation party in the fall, their fundraiser in the fall, and just encourage people to look for ways to get together. And, life is kind of rough right now, and it's probably going to continue to be that way. So the more that we can enjoy each other as people, I think just can help us get through what we want to get through. One piece of business, and this is just to raise, I emailed the board this week in terms of there was most everyone is aware that there was some chatter on social media this weekend about things that happen and with the bond, information about the bond coming out. And I'm just wondering if we want to talk about, with regards to the communication plan that the board created, or that Fred created as a result of board direction, if we want to talk about finding ways to improve our narrative so that it's the board's and district's narrative rather than others. There's strong comments on social media, and yet there's not a lot of it is misleading and not actually what's happening. It's historical in nature and not what's currently happening. So I would just love to see, and I think that the community would love to see kind of updates about what's really happening in the schools, and some of the topics I listed. I know that Fred and his team have been working on a lot of it with regards to the bonds and doing kind of one-sheeters that, there aren't a lot of people that want to pay attention to a board meeting, and I don't blame them. It isn't where we talk about the things that really matter in terms of what are kids learning in the math curriculum and the literacy curriculum and what AP classes our high school students can take and what's happening with enrollment right now. And we talk about that, but making it easily digestible so that we can communicate our message to the community. I know you're going to mock it. Go ahead.
I thought we did that during board meetings. I mean, I guess that's my confusion.
Well, so a lot of people can't watch 4-hour board meetings, and clearly when we're getting a lot of misleading information online, I just think that there's a huge opportunity to tell our story. And I'm certainly not directing the superintendent to do it, but I just think it would, we've made such great strides in communication over the last couple of years. I just think that for people who want to bite off a little bit more and really kind of look at the history, it makes me really, we can't change the past. We can only learn from the past and then move forward. And like what Magatai was saying in terms of the dyslexia, and I can't wait. I've been very excited about seeing, because I know And from that excitement, from what teachers who were involved in it, who have talked about it, who were in the classroom when I was a parent in the classroom and watching, kids struggle and seeing that they're making great strides in helping those students. And then making sure, and while it can't change the experience that parents whose kids have gone through the system had, it can hopefully help reassure, like, we're learning and we're moving, we're learning and we're trying new things in order to be able to better address the concerns that you've had. That's the best that we can do. And I think it's a really good thing to do. And I would think that more people would want to hear about it. So that's kind of my goal, is just to make sure that, I know people kind of make fun of me for thinking that things are so great, and they're great. And they really truly are. They're perfect. Of course not. Don't always have to make that disclaimer, and we can always do better. So let's tell everyone, where did we come from? What did we learn as a result of it? Where we go? Where are we? And where do we want to go? I just think it's really impactful. And then I just think it could be really impactful. And it doesn't all have to be positive. We could have tried something that didn't work. That's okay too, because we're trying new things.
Thank you, Deborah. Christina?
I have a comment to that, not my report yet. Just want to say that, first of all, I want to clarify that when we say we are working a lot behind the scenes, it's never violating public record. We do, like, for example, last Thursday, we went together in a special session. We did a lot of governance, and also we did study the SAT. So we are, it's in public, we do work, and I think that your plan and communication will benefit not only the community to know that happened, because it was 9 to 2, so you don't have to sit and watch the whole video from 9 to 2. So not only what we are seeing, but also for us communicating what happened after that meeting. I think that each one of us maybe heard what was the next step on addressing the SAT. And it was pretty much, I think that having it clear means that if you hear something different than I did, hear something, to clarify it. You're missing this information, or I want this extra information for this, to make our job more efficient. I think the whole point is to make it efficient and transparent for everybody, that they know that this is happening. So just want to make sure that
When we say we, I mean, yeah.
well,
Truthfully, the ICE operations.
but at the same time, it is all saying, like, you know what, that bullet point is not what I meant. What I asked this data is meant this much more. So it's a we in that sense, that we are holding you accountable on the things that we are requesting, and also it is clear for everybody else that and for us to say, like, maybe I didn't hear what you were saying, and it clarifies me. So it is a we on that sense, on the accountability portion, and sometimes we miss some things, but mostly is that we are not violating policy. That everything that we are doing, it is either in public, in special meetings or effective meetings, or whatever we need, but it is during. Is that report? No, my report. Okay, so now, yes. I don't have much more than I know that it's been busy, like you said. There have been in meetings, but all on within public record have been public. I want to bring this idea to the board to maybe include for next agenda related to AI and ethics, creating a policy related to artificial intelligence and ethics. And I've been thinking this a lot, not only because of how it has been increasing the awareness of the community, and also the students also asking us to explore this as something that they want to explore in their curriculum to help them navigate their future careers. And I also think that if we are not careful to put a very high level policy on the ethics of how the staff, the community, and and the students will be used, it will be a missed opportunity for us to be part of this and ensure that this is how we want the students to learn. So I am asking if that is a possibility that we can explore this as a board, to have that and see what the work of the sport that the intendant is also been doing on their operational portion of it.
So I'm also interested in this issue of AI and ethics, and there's a conference that is happening at Seattle University, I think you're doing, yeah. And I'm interested in attending that. So I guess I'm wondering if the board is comfortable with like me and Christina forming like a committee to go out and learn more about this topic and bring it back to the board. Is that
I guess my one curiosity about that would be like, how does that overlap with the work that Andrews is doing with his committee on AI?
which I'd love to learn more about this kind of part of this.
Yeah, I would say if you choose to have that conversation, I think a first step would be for you to kind of, what are the questions, kind of like what we did the other day, what are your interests and questions for us to provide all the work that Andrews, who ran a committee with community members and others last year, bring forward what we came up with and how we arrived at where we are. Then there might be missing components. We can talk about that and we can decide what would be next steps. That's how we could probably partner with you and
I think part of the focus that it sounds like both Christina and I are interested in is not just students. Like until now, everything I've heard about AI has been all like, are students just going to cheat and use this, to write all their papers, kind of like, do we cut off their access to AI, over the district's websites, or servers or whatever. And so I think this looks a little bit broader at like, how can we use AI in a positive way, like throughout the district and like on the side of staff as well as students, like what's okay to do via AI and what's not, So if the board is supportive of Christina and me being in committee, that would be I think the first step would be to learn what's been done so far, because I don't know much about what Andrew's committee said.
And so
I don't know that we need a
We
committee.
don't need- So just the two of us are interested in it, then we can go learn about it.
No, I would say, we put it on, either put it on an agenda or part of our next study session.
That's fine.
I'll attach, just for your own reading, I'll attach what we've done so far so that you can see all the work that Andrews has done. So I'll attach that to your board update.
Yeah.
You as a board then can read what we have, and then you can make a determination as to what you want to do next on that. We will stand and kind of wait for you to kind of get direction, but tons of work that I know Andrew's probably excited to want to present on because of all the work that you've done.
Just provided a training with classified staff on Monday.
That's great. Okay. Thank you.
And just, my other update is that I went to kindergarten, session to welcome prospective kindergarten parents in Lake Ridge, and just it was nice to kind of new parents and for those who did not attend it, I did say that one of the things that is very important of the board is that we represent the community, so we want to hear their voices, and the five of us are always going to listen to anybody to reach out to any of us, or all of us, and we'll be happy to have a conversation. And the best way to represent the community is by being reached by the community and hear their voices. I think it's for everybody else.
Yeah, a few updates. I'm not sure it was last week or the week prior, there was an STLA meeting. There was a lot of conversation around hate speech at the middle school, and sort of thoughts about, from an educational perspective, how maybe we go forward. And I thought one of the comments that was really interesting was from Megan Danta, who I think we heard from earlier, who was talking about her own childhood experience with not, because we were so abstract, not realizing particularity. Like he wasn't sure what a swastika looked like, and became scared that like all these like sort of just random geometric shapes might be a swastika. So it was actually producing fear. And then there was actually some comfort in being able to identify what hate speech looks like. To be able to address it. And so I thought that was a very interesting takeaway. Another was, there was an SCA meeting, a comment from Suzanne Czar, who's an architect. She commented that in her opinion, the most important aspect of the bond from a marketing perspective was mass timber, which is something I championed. And there's a separate question of the financial, how it fits into the larger picture. But I definitely thought that both visually as well as what it embodied in terms of our commitment to environmental sustainability made it a big selling point. And then third, Maggie Ty and I had our second facilities naming committee. I think she said that it was one of the smoothest committees she's been on, which got a laughter from one of the individuals who's taken a lead with drafting it. There's sort of a fully formed policy. There'll be a webinar on February 11th to sort of walk through what the draft of the policy is, and then we'll come to the board probably following that February meeting. Yeah, that's my update.
I went to kindergarten day as well and learned a very shocking piece of information, which is that next year's kindergartners will be class with 2038. And I gasped so loud that the entire room turned to me.
Thank you. I have been meeting with a lot of parents the last week and have a bunch more meetings lined up. So I think some people in the community are in fact taking advantage of that just general offer that we have, like always willing to listen to parents from whatever their issue or topic, or if they just want to like learn more about how the board works. So I've been like, I had one day where I was like back to back. I was like, sorry, I gotta stop. I got someone else. So yeah, but it's been good. I have actually learned quite a lot from hearing from parents, especially like when your own kids aren't in a certain band of education. Sometimes you don't necessarily know what's going on at that level anymore, you know, so that up close and personal. So I did want to just add, like in light of the federal policy shifts that, you know, I cannot speak on this on behalf of the board, but I hope that my colleagues share my sentiment that I will certainly pledge to do everything that I can to make sure that our schools remain a place where students feel safe and valued and respected, regardless of their gender identity or their orientation. And, you know, there's a lot still to kind of unfold with that story. I'm sure there will be lots of, you know, Supreme Court cases. I'm sure that's going to be months before we really know what's going on in that situation. But Mercer Island has a history, at least in my experience of it, of being an extremely safe place for kids of like different identities and different orientations. And I'm really hoping that we can keep it that way. Thank you. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye. Students? Aye. Board members?
Aye.
We are adjourned by 2050. Thank you all.